most of the articles on how to make a Shopify website ADA compliant are completely unhelpful. So we're going to go through my guide, a strong guide to Shopify ADA compliance. And we're just going to go through this and help you have better context for Shopify accessibility and exactly what you need to do to make accessibility fixes to Shopify, and also just understand how to approach accessibility for Shopify websites. So we're going to skip straight through the legal aspect and get into the technical reason why so many Shopify owners are sued. And it's because there are so many different files that they have to keep track of, because Shopify has a lot of different interactive elements. Shopify e-commerce stores have a lot of different interactive elements, and they're located in so many different files. So if you're wondering, is it as easy as just navigating to an accessibility control or a panel? That's not it. And there's a screenshot in this post here, and then we have the theme content, and then we're on an accessibility panel, and there are different options for accessibility. So the first option is skip to content, but this is just a very, very, very small part of accessibility. So if you're wondering, why am I getting sued? Shouldn't Shopify be accessible out of the box? You're first of all, you're reliant upon your theme. The theme that you're choosing is largely going to determine how accessible your Shopify website is. Now, you can change some things, but depending on the theme, you may need to change many more things than others. So it really depends on the theme you're using, but that's not the only part of it. So I have here the technical reason. So the technical reason is it's difficult for many Shopify owners to understand all of the different files and all of the different elements they have to edit within all of these different files. So if you're confused, it's not as simple as just doing one thing, or you definitely an app you install or a widget you install that won't make your website ADA compliant. It won't make your website accessible. So again, and this gets into the next section of my post, your Shopify theme choice is significant, because this is going to give you the basis, the foundation of accessibility that you're working from. And we have the Dawn theme is the out-of-the-box theme that Shopify uses. That's the theme that I'm using as I'm going through my illustrations. But just know that you're likely going to pick a theme, and then based on that theme, if the theme is more accessible, then you're going to have less accessibility issues to fix. If it's less accessible, then you're going to have more accessibility issues to fix. And you likely are already working with an existing theme. So if that's the existing theme, if you just so happen to pick a theme that had more accessibility issues, then you're going to have to go back and fix more of those issues. Now, if you're just now creating a website and you want to make sure that your website is accessible, then it's good to look for any themes that claim that they are fully accessible or WCAG 2.1 AA conformant. Those are really encouraging signs, but you still need to be skeptical because many theme developers themselves, they don't understand accessibility. So they might have worked on some aspects of accessibility, but when it comes to being sued, it can only be a few issues that can lead to a lawsuit. So just keep that in mind, that you have to pay close attention to detail, and not only for that reason, because you're going to be customizing your theme. So because it's not just the theme, it's the content you upload and how you uploaded it, and any integrations, any third-party embeds that you have, any third-party uploads, that's also going to affect the accessibility of your theme. So keep that in mind. Now, you might ask, well, Shopify should have out-of-the-box accessibility. Well, again, I said it largely comes back to the theme you're using. And so I looked up the Shopify theme store requirements, and it's a very light requirement. So they require either that you have a Google Lighthouse score of 60 or 90. And I don't know which it is, because they have both. And I have the link here in the post. I will link to this guide in the description, but there's a link to this. I mean, there's these scores, and they have this minimum benchmark scores, but that having a Google Lighthouse score of even 100 wouldn't matter. You can still have many, many accessibility issues despite the fact that you have 0 errors on a scan or a 100% score. Scans only flag a limited subset of accessibility issues, and even among the issues that they flag, you can still have accessibility issues. So just know that it can clear you for an accessibility issue even when one exists, because there's only so much that automation can do. So keep that in mind. Shopify store requirements, just to have a theme inside of the Shopify theme. I don't know if they call it the theme store, but even just having it in the theme store doesn't make it accessible. So then I have a section on customizing your Shopify theme, and that's what I was getting at. Even if you customize your theme, you can still when you customize your theme, you can still introduce many, many accessibility issues. So everything you do after you get the theme, ideally it has accessibility in place, but even if it does, then you still have to make sure that any changes you are making are made in an accessible manner. Let's see. So how do you make your Shopify theme accessible? So many of you watching this, I'm anticipating you already have a Shopify store. Most of my clients come to me after they've been sued. But when you're working on your theme, there are different settings you need to be aware of. And so obviously when you're adding a product, there are many accessibility issues that can be introduced. Here I have a screenshot of adding a product. And so some of the ways, the accessibility considerations when you're adding a product include having a descriptive title, having alternative text for images, having closed captions for videos, having audio descriptions for videos, having subheadings in place, a proper heading hierarchy, and then descriptive anchor text for links. So those are some of the primary accessibility considerations when you're adding a product. But it's the most of the accessibility is going to take place on the back end. So that's going to be your themed code. So it's not necessarily the dashboard that's so important. It's really the themes code, because that's where the back end for the interactive elements is going to be. And you need to make sure that we have the information is programmatically available. We need to make sure that everything is keyboard navigable. So we need to make sure that we're looking at the themes files, and this is where things get more complex. And a lot of small business owners are using Shopify to leverage having this website, this e-commerce website in a box. But the accessibility is another part of this. And so many designers and developers, they aren't familiar with accessibility. So even it's not just having a skilled developer. Your skilled developer needs to be aware of accessibility and be able to implement that. So that's part of this. So I have a section here on how to edit your themes code. What you're going to do is you're going to go to your themes files, and you're going to do that through customizing your theme. So here I have a screenshot. It's the Dawn theme. It could be any other theme. You can see below the Dawn theme that there are other popular themes that you could be using. Whatever theme you have, you're going to go and click on the customize button. And by the way, there's more than one way to get to the files, but I have here, you go into the themes, you have your theme selected, you go to customize, and then you go to edit code. So once you go to edit code, there's another screenshot, and it just shows I have several file tabs open. So you can go and navigate to these different tabs. And the reason I have these tabs open is because I've opened up these files. So these individual files are where the different code resides for different sections or different parts of your Shopify theme. So I have here open main-product.liquid. So this is going to be where the code is for your product. So just keeping in mind that there are all of these different files, and I think this is what makes it especially difficult, is there's so much to keep track of and so much that you have to go through, and you really need to be aware of the files that have large implications. So like footer.liquid, that's going to have the code for your footer, page.liquid, et cetera, et cetera. So being aware of these files and making sure that you have these files edited, this is what's going to be really important. Now, of course, the accessibility options on your dashboard are important as well, but the code is going to be where most of your focus is going to rest. And as I said, if you have a more accessible theme, there's going to be less for you to edit. So now in this guide that I'm on currently, we just get into WCAG 2.1 AA. This is the technical standard that we're trying to be in conformance with. Now, just because you have an element that doesn't meet WCAG 2.1 AA, the standard, it doesn't mean that your website is not ADA compliant. But the less accessibility issues you have, the better. And some accessibility issues are more impactful than others. So some can be an outright barrier to access, and then others are just more an optimization than something that would prevent somebody from accessing a website. So ideally, you want to be WCAG 2.1 AA conformant, but how you get there is very, very important, because if you are taking care of accessibility issues that plaintiffs' lawyers aren't looking for first, and your project is going to be one that's going to extend several months, you're going to have that risk of a lawsuit stay with you the entire time, because you have these outstanding issues that are what the plaintiff's lawyers are keying in on. My course, the ADA compliance course, tells you exactly what to prioritize and how to find and fix the issues with code examples. So this is really going to be helpful for Shopify owners to, like I said, if you have a developer, then you can give that to your developer, have them learn exactly what they need to do, and then implement the changes. Now, it's probably not going to be perfect, but being aggressive with this and being proactive is a lot better than trying to wait and make sure that everything is perfect. I always recommend just fixing accessibility issues as best you can, as fast you can. And the course tells you exactly what I would do, exactly what I recommend. So continuing on with the guide on the screen with me, we have a Shopify accessibility checklist. And I go through this, and this is really good also for your developer to have. It's like, you need to pay attention to these things. When I have the lessons in the course, they are exactly detailed of what issues I would prioritize and in what order I would prioritize them, and again, exactly how to fix them. But this is a really good overview to understand almost all of the accessibility considerations. So this isn't a WCAG checklist. This is more just understanding the different accessibility considerations and what you need to do. So for example, I have here use of semantic HTML, alternative text for images, keyboard navigability, ARIA attributes for accessibility. So where your abilities to make different components accessible with HTML stop, that's where ARIA comes into play. So ARIA is for custom components. So you will use some ARIA in there. And ARIA stands for accessible rich internet applications. Ensuring color contrast, making sure your forms are accessible. And so there's a lot that goes into that. So even when I'm going through these, understand that there are multiple layers. Like when I say accessible forms, it's not just one thing. So it's not just programmatic form field labels that are associated with the inputs. It's more than that. So responsive and mobile accessibility, and the list goes on. It's a long, long list, but if you cover this list, if you understand this list, then it's really going to help in making your Shopify store accessible. So how do you make your Shopify website ADA compliant? Well, as I said, WCAG 2.1 AA, if you're in full conformance with this technical standard, which has 50 success criteria, and think of success criteria as requirements for conformance. If you meet all of those different 50 success criteria, then you will have a shop and what would be considered an ADA compliant website. But how do you prevent a lawsuit? Because I just went over many of the accessibility considerations. It's going to take you a long time to get through those different considerations. So how do you prevent a lawsuit? Well, you start with the accessibility issues that plaintiffs' lawyers look for over and over again. And that's what the ADA compliance course does. It tells you exactly what to key in on because the plaintiffs' lawyers are looking for certain issues. So the course lays that out, but what you want to do is as you're working on accessibility, you want to lower your risk of being sued. The less accessibility issues overall that you have, the better. The less issues that are flagged by a scan, the better. But you do need to make sure that you work through the issues that plaintiffs' lawyers are looking for first. And that way you're genuinely improving accessibility, but you're also reducing your risk of being sued. And then I talk about what is the law. I talk about Shopify themes. Is there an ADA compliance checker? No, there are scans, right? And scans are usually more or less the same. There may be a little bit of difference between one scan and another, but the concept here is that we're flagging accessibility issues that can be caught by automation through rule sets. So there are a limited number of issues that can be flagged by a scan, and it's always, as I said, it's always best practice to have scan errors down to 0. So I like the wave scan. So if you get your wave scan errors down to 0, that's a really, really good start. But that's not the end of it. There is more to it than that. And then so that's basically the end of the post. And the other part of this is like, you might wonder, well, is there an app or what about those widgets? What about those little logos that I can add to my website? Those don't make your website accessible, and those don't make your website ADA compliant. So just keep that in mind. One of the primary apps that's advertised, or not, it's not, I don't know if they refer to it, I think they do refer to it as an app, is AccessiBe. But AccessiBe, just keep in mind that AccessiBe has been recently sued. The plaintiff said that AccessiBe was misrepresenting the capabilities, something along those lines. I can't remember the exact words in the claim, but the point is that AccessiBe has long been scrutinized, and I have several videos on AccessiBe. I will recommend to you overlayfalseclaims.com and overlayfactsheet.com. Those are really good resources for reading up on overlay widgets and why you don't want to use them. So the point is that there's no automated way to make your Shopify website ADA compliant or considered ADA compliant or WCAG conformant. That's not possible. We can't do this through software. This is something where you have to look through your Shopify website, go through the files, and make sure that everything is accessible. The formal way to do this is with an audit and with remediation. But I recommend starting informally, especially if you don't have the budget for that. Informal is the best way to go, because then you're just fixing. Like, you can go after watching this video and just start making fixes as fast as you can, and that way there's progress. Whereas if you go with an audit, which is the only way to ensure that you're going to be free of accessibility issues, but it's just a long process. You have to find someone to hire for the audit. You have to, and then have the audit and then make the fixes. And so it can be an extended process, especially the remediation or the fixing of the website. That can take at least a month or likely a few months. It really depends on your resources and who's doing the remediation. But that's how you make sure that your website is free of accessibility issues. But I recommend, if you do go the audit route, accessible.org offers audits. But I recommend that you start ASAP. And if you need help with making your Shopify website accessible and considered best in following best practices for ADA compliance, I will include links to contact myself and more resources in the description.